In college, I dated an atheist. In fact, I was engaged. I suspect that my mother got a whole lot of her gray hair during those 2 years. And when it all fell apart, it wasn't because I wised up, it was because he bowed out. And only then did I realize just how much of myself I had sacrificed. And I realized that God had been knocking on the door of my heart quite firmly for some time, and I had not been listening. And so when my now ex-fiance came crawling back a little less than a week later, I said, no thank you. And I made a vow at that moment that I was never again going to ignore the voice of God, which is a great vow, except for one little problem. How do you know that it's the voice of God? Enter anxiety, enter scrupulousness, enter the man who is now my husband. Years later, I started spiritual direction, and on my first meeting, I broke open this question: how do you know when you're hearing God and not yourself? And my spiritual director asked me, well, has there ever been a time in your life when you knew without a doubt that you were hearing the voice of God? Well, sure. She said, what did that feel like? What did that sound like? I thought back to that first moment, and it was when I was in school in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and we were planning the wedding, so we were in the middle of the worst of the anxiety because now it was getting real. And I went on a bike ride along a trail, and I stopped by a creek, and I sat down on the edge of that creek, and I sat there a very long time because that was the first time in weeks that I had felt truly at peace. And I was just sitting there doing nothing during that time. And so thinking back on this, I said to my spiritual director, well, it felt cool and quiet, like a cool breeze on my soul. And then I stopped and I heard my own words, and I realized none of that anxiety, none of it had ever been from God.